Welcome into the Hot Read Podcast. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network, and you can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined for this Friday, August the 9th episode by producer JT. who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, last episode before we are reacting to Titans football in one shape or form or another.
Yeah, it feels exciting. There's actual other NFL football on tonight, even. Like, it feels so good to be back.
There? I've not even thought about this. Okay. Who's playing? Do we know?
Best bet gauntlet. Take the Carolina Panthers with the points +7.
We did promise 60 continuous minutes on today's show of Best Bet Gauntlet preseason, didn't we?
Hey, all I'm going to say is that if the Hall of Fame game didn't get rained out, the Best Bet Gauntlet was going to be 1-for-1 to start off the season. So that's all I want to say.
God intervening and saying, we're not allowing any bettors to win or lose money on this. This is not how this is supposed to work. We can't have this. No.
Yeah, but I think it's Carolina and New England tonight, and then the Lions versus the Giants tonight as well, I believe. So should be two interesting matchups.
So I'm trying to think.
Hendon Hooker,
as I'm about to say, is that two Tennessee Volunteer quarterbacks?
Rocky
tonight?
Top Nation, we are pulling out
Top.
we're pulling out the fine china tonight. We got a special one on tonight, I guess. So that's a great observation, Stoney. Wow. But yeah, look, we're so back. Football is back, and I'm excited. So,
tell me this: if you were like checking out social media betting influencers, JT, and you went to their bio, and they had, because often you see the record in the bio, and if they had like it divided by like types of games, and NFL preseason was one of the things that they had in there, would you be more or less likely to trust their picks?
I mean, I probably they're getting their practice in for the real thing, you know. Bettors gotta have their preseason too.
That's right. You got to get the reps in. That's important. Listen, we've got a giveaway today for the Titans preseason game. We have been advertising it since Tuesday, and if you are not aware of it yet, you can be aware of it now. But I'm afraid you can't enter. It's too late. The entries are closed. We have one seat available in the club level for the Tennessee Titans versus San Francisco 49ers, which is this Saturday evening. Is going to be the primary focus of today's episode, as well as just emptying our notebooks from training camp the last 2 days. JT and I both had an opportunity to get out there. And so we when should we do this giveaway, JT? Should we do it here at the top? Should we do it in the middle of the episode? Should we make people wait to the end?
Yeah, let's make people. I don't know. I want to build up the suspense. I have
We'll do it sometime in the middle of the show. We won't make you wait all 60
names
minutes.
right here.
Right.
This is where they are, and they're going to reside right here until I deem fit. I'll zip it up too, so they're safe.
So at some point, you have to just stick around. At some point in the next 60 minutes. We will have a winner that's going to be joining JT and I, or just JT. Listen, this is the running joke, is that everybody hates Easton. That's fine. If you don't want to sit with me at the game and talk about the Titans with me, I'll just stay in the press box. That's fine. It's not a big deal. I won't come down and visit and say hello and hang out for a couple quarters, but at least JT is going to be joining you in the club level for the Tennessee Titans game this weekend. So that's going to be exciting for one of you lucky winners. And we'll reach out to you. And listen, if we reach out to you and you don't respond to us in like the next 12 hours, we're going to move on. So I hope if you entered, you're listening. And
if you are in line, stay in line.
Stay in line
is what is the best thing to say. We got the duel of the fates in the comments here. Kenneth saying somebody keep JT off the preseason gambling sites. And
That's call the number.
And then Zach saying anytime touchdown for Xavier Legette tonight. So
call the number. I thought, isn't Xavier hurt? Is he even guaranteed?
I don't think he's playing tonight. I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm afraid not. Okay. We're going to dive into, again, those two big topics. The primary portion of today's show is going to be dedicated towards the educated fans guide, viewership guide to the Titans' first preseason game, previewing what's actually going to matter. Because with these preseason games, it is easy to watch them with an undisciplined eye, just kind of taking in the ball game like you would any other normal regular season ball game. And you are going to gather absolutely nothing from it if you do that, if you do not focus in on what is important. It was funny, JT, at the Titans open practice the other day at the stadium, at Nissan Stadium. Coach Dave McGinnis was on the mic talking, like narrating throughout the practice, which was really cracking me up at times. He's just naturally a hilarious person. But he was like coaching the fans in the stands on how to watch practice. He's like, now you're not going to want to just watch the whole thing. You're going to want to focus in on one group, maybe focus in on one guy, pick out a number. Hey, 68, I'm going to watch him for a little bit. And it's right. Like, that's the way that you have to watch practice out there, like we are. And it is also the way that you need to go into the preseason game, because most of the guys that are playing are either not going to be employed by the team in a couple of weeks, or they're not going to see the field unless all hell breaks loose and they're out there, and that's a bad thing if they see the field. So there are only a handful of important guys and important position battles that we're going to focus in on. And you and I, JT, draft style, are going to go back and forth, kind of picking the most important things to us that we are going to be looking at. There's really only 5 or 6 of them, honestly, that I think are of important. We're going to talk about all that, and then emptying our notebooks, some Will Levis discussion. I think we're now, are we officially 3 weeks into camp at this point? 3 weeks down? Does that sound, or yeah, so, something like
Basically,
that.
yeah,
close to 3 weeks. We've had more than a half dozen practices under our belt. And I want to give another kind of update on Will Levis in the quarterback room. Some T'Vondre Sweat talk. Spoiler. He looks as good as I could have hoped he would look. JT, I think you feel the same way. It's a little early. Let's not take victory laps through 10 practices or whatever it is, but the haters they're sweating. I can't confirm. There's salty moisture beating down their foreheads at this moment. So that's a tough scene for them. And then some other little things here or there. We might have to put a Joku Mania to rest. I don't know, JT. I know you have a thought on that. And then I have no idea what else you're coming in here with. I have a couple of pretty mundane thoughts and observations that I think are worth sharing. But you texted me earlier today and said, I'm coming in with some hot takes. So I'm very curious to see what that is. And we'll just kind of leave that at that, because that's a tease, folks. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. If you're with us live today, though, before we get to the actual substance, we need ask you very kindly, if you would not mind going on over to Broadway Sports Media on YouTube. It's Broadway Sports Media YouTube page. Watch this show there. So if you're watching on Twitter, you're watching on Facebook, leave those places. Head on over to YouTube and join the comment section where Zach, rare Hot Read podcast enjoyer, welcome into the show. Stoney, Kenneth, all you guys are already over here in the comments with us. Chef Rand, D Good, we appreciate you guys being here with us on a Thursday afternoon live recording. We want to hear y'all's thoughts. What are you most looking forward to finding out, to seeing in this preseason game? Give us your thoughts over there in the comments. And while you're there, hit like, hit subscribe, all of those things you can do for us. We appreciate it. Okay, that's enough fluff. JT, let's start with the viewership guide today. And there's a clip that I think you got from practice today. We should start with this. It was Brian Callahan's daily State of the Union address to the Titans media, kind of his last announcement before the game on Saturday. He gave us the clarification on who is and is not going to play in the game, as well as some injury updates. Let's roll that clip first.
Nick Vanette was out. That's a veteran rest day for Nick. He also will not play in the game on Saturday. The other 2 veterans that won't play in the game Saturday are Simmons and Landry. Both will not play. Everybody else will suit and play some part of that game. As far as injuries go, that's new. Leroy Watson had a small knee issue. He's week to week. He'll be out for the game. Cedric Gray had a shoulder, did not practice today. He's questionable to play in the game. We'll see what the next couple of days bring for him. Caleb Farley is out with a hamstring. He'll likely be out for a few weeks. Jojo Doman had a low back issue yesterday. He sat today. He's questionable for the game. We'll see again, like Cedric, what the next couple of days bring for him for the game. Other than that, the playtime plan for the preseason game against the 49ers is our ones will play to start the game. They'll all dress. They'll all play. Like to let them go roughly a series or 2, depending on how those series go. And then those guys will be out from the lineup, and the rest of the guys will take over from there. So you will see our ones outside of Jeffrey and Harold on defense, and the guys that have been out will be out. So there's no change in those guys' status; they will also be out, and we'll play a little football. Can't wait.
A lot. All right, so the biggest thing to gather there, obviously, is the confirmation we will see the Titan starters save Jeffrey Simmons out there to play for at least a series or 2. I'd imagine offensively that's going to be dictated by how long the first series is. If they march down and run a 10-play, 92-yard drive, that's going to be it for them. And if they go 3 and out, they're going to get out there one more time and give it another try. So odds are, I'm going to bank, by the way, on 2 drives, because I'm going to guess they get out there and 3 and out and they have to run it back again. And that's just kind of based on how the offense has looked at practice, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. We've already got some folks in the comments talking about what they're most interested in seeing. Zach saying he's looking for more 50-plus yard runs from Will Levis. Yes, reliably informed on the internet yesterday that Will Levis broke off a 50-plus yard run on Wednesday. I was at that practice. I saw him run for about 20, 25 yards, maybe 30. Certainly did not see a 50-plus yard touchdown run of any kind. All I'll say about that is this time of year, there are many people on the internet that talk about training camps like they are at the training camps, when in reality they are just parroting things they heard second or third hand. Be very careful who you do and don't listen to. And then some people are incentivized for some reason to embellish or even lie about what is happening at training camp. I don't know why, but you do see that a lot on the internet. So it's funny, but it's also not good. It's misinformation. So just be careful who you listen to. Yes. JT, the number one thing, I'll just go ahead and start here in our draft order. The number one thing I'm looking forward to seeing in this game is the wide receiver lottery, the wide receiver sweepstakes at the bottom of the depth chart, which we've talked about largely, I think, being determined by the special team situation. Who ends up winning the kick returner role, the punt returner role, is that the same person, etc. Those guys at the bottom of the list that are in contention, Jaquan Jackson and Kyle Phillips and Mason Kinsey, those are the fellas that you're going to see, I'd imagine, a good bit of in this game. And those are the guys that, again, just the way that they're utilized on special teams, I'd imagine anybody that's in contention for returning roles is going to just get cycled through. I don't think it's going to be like one guy gets the whole game. So what they do with that very limited opportunity is going to be very important, as well as just doing the receiver thing. And there are certain guys like Mason Kinsey who, if you've been a Titans fan long enough, you're conditioned to see him turn into prime Wes Welker this time of year. And he's going to, lead the team in targets and yards the next 3 games and still somehow inexplicably miss the final cut. And then the fans that are box score scouters or smooth brained individuals say, how can he not be on the team? There are reasons. If you watch him play real football against ones, there are reasons why certain guys are fringe candidates. Now, I'm not saying I'm not trying to single out Mason Kinsey here. He's not a bum. He's a friend. He's a scrappy guy. He's useful on special teams. I think he's a useful return man. So, like I've said in the past, it wouldn't shock me if he were to make this team based on the wide receiver injury situation. But that's what I'm looking most closely at, JT. How do those guys perform? How are they utilized in the return game? And one last note I'll add here, if folks we don't have the clip of it, but we did hear today from Kyle Phillips, who many fans have, for good reason, written off as a potential return guy, because he was kind of drafted to be that. And then a lot of fumbles, a lot of miscues, too much insecurity with the football. I think the last time we saw him try anything in that regard was in London, right? The Ravens game. And I think right before halftime was when he fumbled and gave the Ravens a free field goal right there to just kind of stack up the points. And then I think he got hurt on that play too, if I'm not mistaken. So we didn't see anything from him again. This new coaching staff has come in and given him a blank slate. And so he's getting to compete for the job just like everybody else. Whether you think that's wise or not, that's the reality of the situation. So I think he is at this point firmly back in the mix.
Yeah, I think our priors of what we thought Kyle Phillips could do is now just kind of turned on its head with that comment today, for sure. Definitely going to see a lot of in the mix there with both on the punt returns and also the new kickoff regime. Getting to see regiment, I should say,
that's
the ability to have 2 of them back there on that play, I think is going to be able to see what separates them all out there. And I think you're going to get a lot of looks with, like you said, Kyle Phillips, Mason Kinsey, Jaquan Jackson, he was also drafted to build that role. And then to be able to play that role. And then also you cannot forget, I should say, guys like Kearis Jackson and other guys that could still be in the mix.
That's a Freudian slip, by the way. You cannot remember Kearis Jackson, I think applies to many Titans fans at this point, because yes, he has kind of gone by the wayside in our memories, but you're totally right that we should not forget Kearis Jackson being in the mix. Interesting, and I think it was our buddy Paul Karski earlier today. I've listened to a number of things today, so I've lost track. I apologize if this is wrong. It may have been Zach. It may have been Braden. One of those 3 guys said, it's been hard to tell with these fringe guys through training camp so far who has really emerged, not in the return game, but as actual receivers. Because with Kearis Jackson, for example, he has looked the best in his group, but it's with the 3s. So he's the best amongst the 3s. How do you judge that against a Mason Kinsey who's getting work with the 2s? Against a Kyle Phillips, maybe has been a little bit quieter in full 7s and 11 drill. And it's been less quiet in 7s, but in full 11 on 11, it's not been a whole lot of Mason Kinsey, Kyle Phillips, but it's because he's getting runs with the 1s and the 2s. And so you have to kind of balance the one-on-one period where 2 days ago when I was there, they were running the red zone one-on-ones, and a guy like Kyle Phillips was one of the only bright spots of that period. Otherwise, the offense was really struggling. So how much do you weigh that in because with him and with Mason Kinsey and with Kearis Jackson, all three of these guys, their unique skill set lends itself to that kind of drill. Like they're kind of built for those one-on-ones, short area, red zone, running routes in a phone booth kind of deal. That's what they excel at. It's the other things that you're considering. Can you stay durable? Are you able to be deployed at different positions in the offense? Are you able to be flexible with your route depth? Can you separate downfield? All of those things are what we have questions about, not whether or not, Kearis Jackson and Kyle Phillips can separate on a short intermediate route across the middle of the field. We know that. That's why they're on the team. So I don't know. What do you expect? Not to change the topic entirely, but on the topic of returning, I've seen Treylon Burks' name floated, in part just because his role is different now, and because he's, when all the receivers are healthy, the wide receiver 4 on this team, not being relied upon as heavily to be a starter out there. You could put him out there as a return man, especially with this new kickoff return. On paper, I get it. Like, his body type lends itself to big body guy that is really fast and really strong. Let's let him handle the ball and be kind of that big hybrid running back type in the return game, because we think that's what this new return system is going to lend itself towards. Do you think that's a good idea? And separate question, do you see them trying it?
Considering DeAndre Hopkins' injury, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't keep him out there to be able to be on punt return and kick return. However, I think it cannot go unstated that they have given him a lot of looks back there on the kick return and punt team, because, with Coach Brian Callahan saying, if you're on the roster, you have to be able to contribute somewhere. And early on, Treylon Burks, his kind of message has been, I want to contribute to this team however I can. And that's with him being able to, be a gunner on special teams and trying to take that message to heart. And so while I think there is a possibility we see it with the given kind of injury situation with DeAndre Hopkins right now, you probably want to err on the side of caution and give the guys who, spot is not exactly set in stone yet on this team probably more looks. I think we'll probably see it at some point, I think, in the preseason from Treylon Burks. I think we can also, just a side note, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tyjae Spears out there on certain looks, especially in kickoffs. And so there's a lot of different options that they're going to be able to use.
Stoney with a good point in the comments. PK is going to backhand you for the way you just pronounced Treylon instead of Treylon. This is true. I think it bears repeating. We have all, and I'm guilty of it as well. We have all gotten fast and loose with our pronunciation of Treylon's name. It is in fact Treylon, not Treylon. I think even Coach Callahan has been saying it wrong at times. So Treylon is not it. Treylon is it, and Treylon should correct us more often if we're mispronouncing his name. You mentioned Tyjae Spears there, and Zach with just the stupidest comments today. I dislike the idea of using Treylon Burks back there as a returner for selfish reasons. While it does sound fun, I still am holding out hope that he can develop into a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, if given the right opportunity. And again, the ability to just have a stretch of healthy football, half a season, a full season, God willing, that'd be awesome. And so I want to see that. And a bad way to accomplish that is let him go out there and run car wrecks 3 or 4 times a game. The other thing that you mentioned there is Tyjae Spears. As much as I dislike using Burks in that role, I dislike using Spears in that role even more. Last year, totally got it. He's the running back 2. He's young. He is a very effective player. Like with Burks and Spears, both guys, the reason I don't want them playing returner roles has nothing to do with their ability. I think they both be quite good at being a returner. I think Tyreek Hill would be an awesome returner. I don't want him back there doing it because it's a bad idea. I want him to be awesome doing other things than returning the football. And so Kenneth giving me grief. How many times is Easton going to fall for the Treylon Burks cheese in the mousetrap bit? Listen, I've said it, Kenneth. My only concern is the health. And I do not dispute that the dude can't stay healthy. But I still maintain it's kind of the same way I feel about Kyle Fellows, by the way. I maintain that if they could just stay healthy, they're good players, and you'd see them as the good players that they could be if they could just stack some games. But again, neither can stay healthy. So let's wait to see that actually happen. Those are my personal opinions on those two. Do I think they give him a try? I think they do. I do think with Tyjae, I'm less confident. With Treylon, I'm pretty sure we're going to see him return something during the preseason, and it'll be exciting. And I'm going to be holding my breath, praying that it's not like the one and only play he runs this year, because frankly, that's the point we're at with him. So.
Yeah, and as DeAndre says in the comments here, he gets hurt walking, let alone doing kick returns and punt returns. And I think that's a fair thing to say. I know a lot of people have pointed out, I think most notably and most vocally, Buck Rising has noted that Treylon always seems to just find his way to the ground somehow, whether it's in his route or being able to catch. This is a big Braden
Gall point too.
Exactly. Like, Treylon is already getting himself into questionable plays just with how he plays the game out there. So you are right that he could be really good, but that's probably an even more likely way for him to get hurt.
Okay, what's the next biggest thing you are going to be watching for in this game? Is it a person? Is it a position group? What is it?
It's a person, and it's got to be the revenge game for Chris Hubbard. No, I'm just kidding. On the opposite
I forgot
side
that he's
of
a
the
Niner.
line,
That's crazy.
I think it is. Looking at the comment here, Kenneth says in the comments here, T'Vondre Sweat versus an offensive line not belonging to the Titans. And this is an interesting point because we've talked about how T'Vondre Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons have been like this unstoppable duo, and how T'Vondre Sweat has looked really, really good in camp. Well, now you're going up against an offensive line that is not the one you see every single day almost. And then on top of that, you're not going to have Jeffrey Simmons next to T'Vondre Sweat this weekend. So it's going to be very interesting to see T'Vondre Sweat go up against guys. As Stoney said, we mentioned this on Tuesday's show, his ability to go up against Dominic Pooney. That's going to be for the sickos, the draft watching sickos that we are.
That's electric. It's electric.
It's going to be super fun to see that matchup, but more so, T'Vondre Sweat on his own, see how it can be more or less than just a compliment to Jeffrey Simmons. Let's see him be able to use that pass rushing work that has been so highly praised this training camp. Let's see it in action against someone else, not the Titans.
We're going to talk more about Sweat later in the show, and in particular the endurance that he's demonstrated so far, which has been part of what's really impressive with him. But the reason I bring that up now is, they're only going to run the starters for a series or two, which is what Brian Callahan said. And with offense, it's easy to tell, like they'll run a series. And if it's not successful, they'll run one more. That's the way it's almost certainly going to go. With the defense, it's less, I guess it's similar in the sense that if the ones get out there and it's a 5-6 minute drive, maybe they pull them. Then again, if it's a 5-6 minute drive and they let the opposing team just march down the field, the defensive coach may say, hey, that was lousy. Get back. I want to see your butts out there again. And let's play some good defense here. We need you to actually play defense. Let's focus up. So I could see that happening too. With T'Vondre, he's a starter. How much do you think we're actually going to see from him? Because there's a part of me like you that's like super stoked to see him play, but I'm afraid it's going to be, 12 snaps, 15 snaps. And then it's going to be the end of the day. And that's fine. I get that. But how much are we going to be able to garner from that sample size?
I think it really comes down to if he's able to, in those snaps, capitalize on at least one of them like he does in training camp, right? We always get that 1 or 2 T'Vondre Sweat reps in training camp that just knocks your socks off and shows you how impressive this guy is. And, I think if we can get one of those, we can, it doesn't do much, but it solidifies that this guy will be able to do it in game in these live reps instead of just like in training camp one-on-ones, right?
Right. And it's worth mentioning, Joe, let's just kind of talk about the 49ers second team players that, a lot of this game, I'd imagine it's going to be a lot of third team guys eventually too, but at least to start the game, the Niners, I don't know if folks know this, pretty good football team. Pretty deep football team. And this group of second rung players, just depth chart wise, Ricky Pearsall, don't know if he's going to play, but he's there. Ronnie Bell, I believe a Senior Bowl standout
Chris
from last
Conley.
year.
Titans
right,
legend.
That's right. Jacob
Robbie
Cowing.
Chosen, who was just signed today.
That's a great point. I'm not going to bank on him getting much run in the preseason, but he could. Spencer Buford, Jalen Moore, Ben Barch, John Feliciano, Chris Hubbard, Eric Saubert, Josh Dobbs is the second string quarterback. I don't know if folks know. Just all of the Tennessee volunteer former quarterbacks on today's show. You're going to see some Josh Dobbs action. I'll be curious to see how much they run him out there, because then it's Brandon Allen, your former Cincinnati guy, Brandon Allen, and Tanner. I'd never heard of this guy in my life. Tanner Mordecai. You ever heard of him?
I do. I believe he's a rookie.
He is a rookie. Can you tell me where he's from?
Arizona?
I have no idea. Your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, no, Wisconsin couldn't be more wrong. Okay. Yep, Tanner Mordecai. How about that? I hope it's a lot of Josh Dobbs, because that will press into what is my second point here. The second string cornerbacks, just like we've been talking about the receivers needing further down the depth chart, needing to step up and them being able to prove themselves in these preseason games. The same applies for the cornerbacks. That parallel still exists in these preseason matchups. And with L'Jarius Sneed, who with the management thing, it was curious to me that he didn't mention Sneed as somebody that wasn't going to play. Like, I was expecting him to say all the starters besides Sneed and besides Simmons will play. He didn't say Sneed. So are we going to see a little bit of L'Jarius? Perhaps. I don't know if that's the wisest thing in the world, but if they think that he needs a little bit of action, then get him out there. Cool. And Cheeto is still TBD, so he's not going to be out there. So we're going to get to see these guys that are further down the depth chart. Now, Caleb Farley, this is a huge bummer, and just it's not surprising at all. I understand that, but just from a personal standpoint of rooting for the guy and trying to hoping the guy can finally get a break in the NFL. He goes down with a hamstring injury on Wednesday, walked out of practice early with a trainer. Didn't look all that bad, but he was announced, I believe, today. Yeah, at some point in the last 24 hours that he was going to be missing at least a couple of weeks with that hamstring injury. So we won't see any of him. That means it is a big opportunity for two guys in particular come to mind, and that would be the rookie Jarvis Brownlee Jr. out of Louisville, who we've been hyping up a whole lot, and then the other rookie, UDFA, Gabe Judy Lawley. Those two are the ones that I'm going to have my eyes glued to. Yes, you're going to have Trey Avery out there. I understand. You're going to have Anthony Kendall out there, Robert Javier out there, Keaton. Sorry, that's a safety. That's Eric Garrer. I knew I was missing somebody. Eric Garrer is going to be out there, but to an extent, not Robert Javier, who's a rookie, but with Kendall and Garrer and Trey Avery, especially Avery, they're known quantities at this point. Like we pretty much know what you're going to be getting in those guys. It's the upside guys in Judy Lawley and Brownlee Jr. that I'm going to be really excited to see go up against, again, some nothing receiving talent like Gabe Judy Lawley versus Jacob Cowing. Give me some of that. Like, I want to see that matchup, Ronnie Bell versus Jarvis Brownlee Jr. Those are the kinds of matchups. If I see those two across from each other, I'm not going to be focusing on anything else in that play besides those two.
Yeah, I think, bringing up another point with those wide receivers, a lot of them are shifty slot guys. So that'll be a good test for Gabe Judy Lawley and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. to kind of display their ability to stick to the player and be able to, show what they have against wide receivers that are not just the slot guys on the Titans team. So that'll be really interesting. I think also you look at a guy like Trent Taylor, that might be an interesting inside matchup for them as well. But yeah, like you said, a very deep team. So the action that the 2s and 3s will get against the 49ers is going to be very, very impressive, because I believe I was researching this and it sounds like San Francisco may play 1 or 2 starters, but that's it. Just going off their preseason history in years past, right. A lot of the starters Kyle Shanahan has rarely ever played any starters in any preseason game. So you might get the Titans offense looking maybe a little better with the starters and the Titans defense looking better. But like you said, it's a deep team. So this is some veteran talent that has been around the league and is used to this.
I want to hear your next answer, your next draft pick for the thing you're looking forward to most in this game. But I only mentioned the 49ers second team offense. Let me mention the defense real quick, just because there's some funny names on here. Robert Beal Jr., Kevin Givens, Jordan Elliott. How about the folks probably haven't heard this name in a while. Yetter Gross-Matos is on this team. D Winters is out there. Curtis Robinson. How about this? This is a deep pull as well. Demetrius Flanagan Fowles is on this roster. Ambry Thomas, Tracy Walker III, George Odom, a Titans familiar face, Rocky Sin, not familiar having been on the team. The Titans have played him a number of times with Indy and then with Baltimore. And then Renardo Green, the rookie nickelback out of, I completely forget, Boston College. Does that sound right?
It sounds right. I think also the Wake Forest prospect,
one of the two. I don't know.
The Wake Forest prospect Malik Mustafa out there is a guy that we also had our eye on. Will be interesting to watch him play as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you see the news this week? He was missing practice. He was hurt or something, which stinks. But I don't know whether or not he's going to play. I hope it was nothing. But I saw at some point either yesterday or today that he was out of practice. Either way. An interesting group. And so what is the next thing that you are most looking forward to seeing out there?
I think to have to be Brian Callahan's play calling. I'm, whether it is with the ones, twos, or threes, just being able to see Brian Callahan and how, he's not going to empty the bag because it is preseason, but this is his first action as well. And so it's interesting to see, even if it is just going to be a lot of nothing and playing very just like, not a really complex offense this weekend, seeing him get in the saddle and do the head coaching things, I think is something that we take for granted. And it's something that he needs to work through as well. And I think that's going to be interesting to be able to talk to him about that and also watch it during the game.
What is it on Madden where it's like John's pick and it's like, if you don't want to think about what you're calling, it's just the generic play call for the situation. It just hands you an AI generated
It's like
play.
Madden, John Madden, recommendation.
The Madden recommendation play. That's what you're getting all weekend long. I do find that interesting because my initial reaction when I hear I can't wait to see what the play calling is like in a preseason game is to roll my eyes so far into the back of my head they never come back. But when you've got a completely different identity offensively and defensively for that matter on this team, is it fair to say that even the most pared down base vanilla version of your offense that you're going to be running in the preseason is still a basic representation of what your offense is going to look and feel like at its core? I do think that there's something to that. It's like on the scale of nothing, something, everything. It's certainly something. It's certainly not nothing. It's certainly not everything. The biggest thing for me is going to be how much do they spread it out? How much different is the run pass divide? And some of that's dictated by the guys you have out there, right? So if it's, a lot of Jabari Small and another guy that we've all become accustomed to becoming prime Adrian Peterson the next 3 games. How about a little nasty nut Julius Chestnut? It is nasty nut season here in Nashville. It is time for him to go. I'm gonna say Julius Chestnut runs for 13 attempts, 91 yards, long of 37. That's my line for him in this game. I think that it's going to be a big Julius Chestnut game, as it always is in the preseason. I don't know. So it sounds like, since you brought this up, you think there is something to that, right?
Yeah, to your point, it's like it's not like you're going in through install and saying, here's our basic preseason thing that's going to look different than our offense that will come after, right? Like it is going to be interesting, I think, to see how what also just kind of watching Nick Holtz on the sideline or in the box and how he operates as well, I think is going to be an interesting thing that we are going to continue to get used to and kind of have to understand how that is going to work out.
Have we heard, do we know if he's going to be in the box or the sideline yet? Have we asked that question?
I'm not sure.
That's
I don't think
dawning
so.
on me. I don't think we have.
I don't think anybody has. So that may be interesting to find out this weekend.
I'm going to guess he's down there. I don't know. I just feel like he's a sideline guy. I don't know. I need to go back and look to see what he did in in Jacksonville. But can I have like one more that I really do care about, and then the rest is kind of just like whatever. The last thing for me is, and maybe we kind of buried the lead on this, the offensive line. We're going to get just a peek, just a little glimpse at the ones, right? And so we're going to see the 3 on the left side of the line that we already know are locks, no questions there. You get to that right side of the line, and we have gotten some clarity with retirement of Sadiq Charles. Okay, it's going to be the Dylan Radin's show. At least it's his to lose right now. On Wednesday, we kind of wondered if that was a competition because he was splitting those ones reps with Andrew Rupchich, but then And Andrew Rupchitz after that practice said that the coaches were talking to him about getting him some more reps with the ones. But then I won't steal your thunder here. You were actually there, but I heard today that it was pretty much just Dylan Radins, right? Is that what you saw out there?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's the Dylan Radins show at right guard, and then right tackle. We know it's MPF. Well, I have some MPF thoughts for later on in the show, but I've been encouraged by what I've seen from him so far. However, it's those guys that are still maybe kind of competing for the spot that I'm curious to see how they look. I almost said Dennis Daly. Excuse me. Not Dennis Daly. That is really a brutal callback. Cole Spencer is the rookie who we came in with like some high hopes. They paid him a lot of money, but he's not really caught my eye a single time so far. Daniel Brunskill, Andrew Rupchitz, as previously mentioned, John Ajokwu, which might be tough. Jalen Duncan, which also might be rather tough. Latavius Simmons, Corey Levin. Of these guys, Leroy Watson not playing. Garon Christian. Of these guys who will see a decent amount in this game, who are you most intrigued to see play?
It's the guy who I'm going to give it right back to you on mispronouncing names here. John Ajokwu.
Excuse me. Ajokwu.
Yeah,
Thanks,
geez. And now I'm messing up my own thing as well. I can't even say it right.
We're gonna figure it out.
Give it a backhand comment to you. His ability to play the real live reps. This is kind of also going in. I'll save my hot take on the offensive line here, but seeing if he can still continue to compete for a depth position on this team, I think that's going to be very, very interesting.
Wait, so what's the take? That he can or can't? Or are you saving the take?
I'm saving the takes.
I'm
gotcha. Saving all these takes.
Excuse me.
Gotcha. But seeing him, I think, is going to be interesting. Seeing how they deploy Daniel Brunskill, seeing how that is going to play, whether he is getting some looks at the right guard or if they continue to use him center position. I know even, they talked about floating the idea that he had the experience, being able to play that position, even though it wasn't really he wasn't playing it great. He's
done it. Has it been good?
But will he continue to get most of the work as the center for the 2s and 3s, or will he kick out to that right guard this weekend? That'll be interesting as well. Those two guys specifically. And like you said, it's a shame that Leroy Watson will not be out there because I think he's kind of the biggest wild card of where he can play on the offensive line, as the coaches and himself have said, like he feels comfortable and confident that he could play any position on the offensive line. So those three guys are the ones that really kind of stand out to me.
Yeah, your answer is essentially mine, that it's less about a specific guy and it's more about some of these guys we don't quite know where they're wanting to deploy them, finding out where they are playing and in what order, right? Is John Ajokwu the backup right tackle right now behind MPF? Is Jalen Duncan pushing for that position? How do those two look? Daniel Brunskill, are they playing him as the center, the backup center, or is he the backup guard, or is he the backup guard? Right now, if I had to guess, I'm going to guess Corey Levin is the backup center, and that's a big part of the reason why they went and signed him when they did, and they're playing Brunskill as one of the backup guards, but I don't know if he's going to be the right guard 2 or the right guard 3, because I do think Andrew Rupchitz is, in the team's eyes at least, the guy that they're looking at right now is the swing guard. I don't know. There's not enough names here. And then the biggest wild card for me is Cole Spencer, who, again, we came in kind of excited about what he can do. Haven't noticed him at all. I'd imagine he plays a good bit in this game, and when he does, I'm going to have my eyes glued to number 70 to see if he flashes anything, because I'm not ready to give up quite yet on him as a developmental guy. That's what I'm focused on. So that's the offensive line, and I don't know. There are a couple other little things that I'm going to be watching for, but is there any other big things to stand out to you?
I was just going to say we can go through the comments of what other people here have said is excited for them to watch. Chef Rand saying it's sweaty boy season, and saying Tavondre and Jeff is like Casey and Hainsworth on the same team. Absolute monsters. Stoney says that he's excited to watch Isaiah Eaton. Pretty sure it's Eaton.
And pretty sure Stoney didn't learn his lesson from Paul Karski giving him grief a couple of hours ago for having any attachment to Eaton. I will say, Stoney, the first practice we went to during rookie trading camp, he caught my eye, and I've not been able to quit him yet either. So it's okay. I'm with you.
Zach saying Harold Steria he's a guy we'll talk about in the kind of notes dump of our notebook. That's an interesting one to watch. D Good saying, I want this defense run like a Todd Bowles defense, blitz off the bus. Zach and Kenneth both also saying they want to see the defense actually blitz. Kenneth saying, I'm going to laugh if Denard Wilson sends 0 blitzes in the preseason.
Oh, I hope he does, though. I hope he does. It'd be so funny if he just did nothing like what he's actually going to do in the season.
It would make our jobs to talk about it and discuss it a lot harder, because we know,
but it's objectively funny.
It is pretty funny. So that is what stands out to the people in the chat here. Stoney asked,
another big one or no?
No, I was just going through that. Stoney asked if Spencer is playing left guard or center.
Right.
I think it's been more. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
he's asking. Not in the game. I see.
I think it's been more of that left guard position as a backup. No,
I've noticed him in both spots. I'm checking the depth chart. He's listed on the depth chart as center. I've seen him in both places. I've honestly not watched like enough of every snap to know, like, to track which one is more than the other. So we'll see. They haven't listed as the backup center, but I've seen him in both places. As Zach pointed out in the comments, Harold Stereo, which may need to go back to the drawing board on that nickname. I don't know if that's obviously it's supposed to be hysteria, but it kind of sounds like a disease. Is that a venereal disease, Harold Stereo? I don't know if that's necessarily a positive thing. Jalen Harrell, the rookie, who they have playing the edge position and got a shout out today from Brian Callahan. That group is the last one that I had on my list of things to watch, just because with Arden Key going to be suspended for the first 6 games, somebody's got to emerge. And based on the comments today from Brian Callahan, when asked that question very broadly from, I think, Terry McCormick, hey, who stood out at the edge position? He goes and immediately singles out one guy. It's the rookie, Jalen Harrell, out of Michigan, who has come along, and did not notice him one bit personally throughout the spring and then the beginning of training camp. And then the last 2 times I've been there, he has made more than one play in both of the practices that has caught my attention. And so I get it. I don't think he's just blowing smoke up the rookie's ass. I think this is really a guy that they're excited about and is starting to come along. And like Brian Callahan said in his comments, has shown real ability to actually rush the passer, which is what they desperately need.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, because I share the same sentiment. Going back to rookie minicamp and OTAs, was not a guy that was really on our radar, but it seems once the pads have come on, this is a guy who's been noticeable and making an impact in practice. So, like you said, just kind of by extension of that, on the outside linebackers, the inside linebackers with Garrett Wallace going down, and this kind of Jojo Doman.
How dare you?
Dealing with an injury. It's getting thin already very fast. And it's just like, we've been talking about, you can also include Cedric Gray, who may not play because of a shoulder injury as well. Like, there's so many moving pieces in that interior linebacker position as well, that it's going to be interesting to see if Chance Campbell can kind of, maybe make an impact, or Otis Reese or anybody.
I was about to say Otis Reese is the one that I'm going to keep an eye on, because I don't quite understand him being as far down on the depth chart as he is. Like, before Wallow got hurt, it was Chance Campbell and Wallow ahead of the Otis Reese tier. I don't know how I feel about that personally. I think Otis is more talented than both of those guys, but that's the way the coaches sees it. And this is the time this is kind of the last stand. Otis Reese, make some plays in the preseason if you're wanting to make this team and jump some of those guys. To go back real quick to the edge position, it's not just Harrell, right? And he's the one that I'm most curious about, but Caleb Murphy is somebody that I think a lot of fans, if he has a sack or 2 or a big pressure, if he has a big game, fans are going to get right back on that train. I'm still a doubter, but you never know with a guy like that who is young and has potential. I'm trying to think. I know I'm missing somebody.
TK McClendon, maybe Marlon Davidson, getting the big Q, Quentin Bohanna, who I have secretly in circles been kind of plotting that this team may like big Q, Quentin Bohanna, a lot.
Well, if he makes the team, do you think we'll find out his real name? Because the Quentin Bohanna, that's a witness protection program name. That's not a real person.
Yes.
So he may have to reveal himself, legally speaking, if he joins the team. No, the one that I was thinking of is Thomas Rush, who caught my attention early on in rookie minicamp and then hasn't really much yet, much recently. So maybe he makes a couple of plays. But again, does anybody at all, not named Harold Landry, on this team play the edge position and play it well? Let's see it. Let's see you do the thing. So that is something that I'll be looking for. The last thing I'll mention, then we can get to some camp notes and the drawing, by the way. We've not forgotten those. The handful of people that have entered the drawing are probably sitting here wondering they've forgotten us. We're not going to do the drawing. No, we're going to do it here in a minute. The tight end position. We know that Nick Vanette's not going to be out there. We know that you're only going to get a couple of drives out of the co-starters in Chig and Josh Wiley. So on a personal sicko level, that brings Thomas Odukoya into play. And I will not and cannot quit Thomas Odukoya. Every time I want to give up on him, he goes out there and makes a play or two. And when his competition at the bottom is David Martin Robinson and Steven Stylianos, who have done absolutely nothing and do not look very like they are NPC camp bodies, no disrespect, but that's just the reality of the situation, fellas. Thomas Odukoya is going to stand out, and I would not be shocked at all if he makes some plays. He was also singled out by Brian Callahan this week as somebody that has caught his attention.
Yeah, I'm going to let you hang your hat on that one. You've been a ride or die Odukoya fan since day one, I think. So that, yeah, I think having him step up, he definitely, he has worked on his run blocking and being that bigger body tight end. It'll be interesting to see him kind of take that Nick Vanette role this week and be able to step up in that way.
Well, and while I'm still not going to say I think he's going to make the roster, if he doesn't, and Paul Karski was talking to me about this earlier at camp, he's still that international player program designation guy. Like he's not, he can be on the technical practice squad during the week as a 17th player when you can only have 16 practice squad guys because he's in that international player designation role. But in order to come off of that role and be on the active roster, the international player has to be taken off of the exemption international list and put on the regular old counts against the 16 player list for at least 3 weeks of the season. And then they can be called up as a reserve to play on game day. So he's kind of in limbo forever, as long as they're continuing to try to exploit the rule and keep him on the roster as a 17th guy. Because if they ever lose, God forbid, one of these starting tight ends and need somebody like him to step up, you're going to have to call on a David Martin Robinson or a Steven Stylianos. You can't call on him unless you make him one of the regular practice squad guys. So at some point, they have to put their money where their mouth is. And if Brian Callahan, like you said at practice this week, is confident that this guy is showing him things that are worthy of potentially playing, being a depth reserve player that they call upon during the season, I don't believe you until you put him in a position to actually do that, because right now he can't.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. That's it for what to watch. That's your educated fan guide to watching the Titans' first preseason game. We will be going, JT, back to a 3-show-a-week format going forward now, because we've got games to react to. So on Sunday, the live taping of the Monday morning episode, we will be reacting, getting back to the winners and losers, baby. We'll do a winners and losers episode, reacting to what
winners
happened.
And losers for a preseason game.
It feels right. Don't try to push back on that. It's what we're doing, is winners and losers. So that's what we're going to do on our Sunday show. Tune in for that. And then regularly on Tuesday and Thursday, live recordings for the Wednesday and Friday morning shows. Before we get to our notebook emptying on training camp this week, JT is holding up the baggie of names, the folks who took the time, and we thank you very much, to 1, subscribe to the Broadway Sports Media YouTube page, and 2, complete the 440 Media survey. Now, that survey is still out there, and while it cannot get you an entry at this point into our competition, we still are looking for folks to respond. If you are even a sometimes watcher of the Hot Read podcast or any of the shows here on the 440 Podcast Network, we really, really need you to go and complete the survey. It just takes a couple of minutes of your time. You can do it on your phone. It's linked in the YouTube description here. It is linked in the podcast description. You can find the link on our social medias. Go take that survey at the link. Help us out. It is a massive, tremendous help to us if we can get as many entries into that as possible. But without further ado, JT, who is going to be joining you and potentially I, whether or not they like me, in the club level for Titans 49ers this weekend? Are you ready?
I am ready, and we have some people. We have at least some people here live in the chat to react. Derek says fingers crossed, and he's got some confidence here for my preseason ticket. So best of luck to him. But yeah, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna open it like that. I'm just going in. All right, we can start the drum roll now. Can you see it?
No. Super washed out.
No. Jesse Fletcher.
Jesse Fletcher. All right. Congratulations to Jesse. Congrats on winning that ticket. We will reach out to you. And listen, if Jesse doesn't respond to us in the next 12 hours or so, we'll
Derek,
have to do
stay in
drawing.
line.
Stay in
Derek,
line.
stay in line. If you're
in line, stay in line. But yeah, congrats to Jesse. We're looking forward to having you out there and hanging out to watch.
Oh, there you go.
Titans.
Now you can see it a little better. You see that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can't read it, but it is there, and I see words.
Yes,
I trust you that it's Jesse Fletcher. So we'll reach out to Jesse. Congrats, Jesse.
I'll keep this here. So in case Jesse does not, but like Derek says here, stay in line because Jesse could go. He could have gone AWOL. He could.
And D-Good feels bad that he has to attend the game with me again. He doesn't have to. Well, that'll be dealer's choice on that. Jesse, if you're listening, and I hope you are, because otherwise I don't know how you're going to find out about this. We are going to reach out to you, and we'll give you the information on how to hook up with us this Saturday evening for a good little time. It's Tony's saying Jesse Fletcher. That's actually Quentin Bohanna's real name. That may be the case. We may have one of the Titans players just want an extra seat to come and watch the game instead of play. Okay. Before we get out of here today, we've just got some general notes to empty our bag on, and I've actually got one more clip to show from Will Levis. Do we want to start with the Levis topic so we can get that clip out of the way, JT? You wanted to talk about this, Levis's connection overthrow issue, and it's kind of more on the topic of the sobering reality of what Will Levis has looked like through camp so far. But I asked him on Wednesday about how he has worked to improve his pocket awareness. And that's one of the biggest issues that anyone who has actually watched the film on him in year one and in college, for that matter, one of the biggest issues you have with him, that's one of his biggest weaknesses. Not shocking, not an unexpected thing to have pocket awareness issues when you're a rookie, especially not shocking when you are playing in a play action heavy, deep shots and dump off, nothing intermediate style offense like Will Levis was, which, there's a good article, by the way. Ben Solak wrote an article on all of the sophomore quarterbacks over at ESPN where he's working now, where he goes through a lot of these numbers. If you want to see the actual numbers, Josh Allen in his rookie year was used, I think, as Ben put it, as a literal trebuchet to just launch the ball downfield. And he had those deep routes on 20% of his passes. Last year, Will Levis did it in 21% of his passes. So that's kind of a frame of reference. Everything was either deep or a dump off at or near the line of scrimmage. So that's what you're signing up for in that kind of offense, to be pressured a lot. That being said, his track record in college as well, just he's not somebody that is super aware of the things around him, which is a blessing and a curse. But in an offense that's going to be pass heavy and need to be passing efficient heavy, like the Brian Callahan offense we're expecting, he's going to have to fix that. And so I asked him how big an issue he sees that as and what he's been working on to address it. And here was his answer.
I mean, you hear, especially early in my career, I had a habit in college, like most guys, they don't want to move into the pocket, move into pressure, and they feel like they're most safe, back there and being able to look up and just bounce back around. We got such a great inside push from our D-line with Sweat and Jeff. There's been certain times where in most pockets you're comfortably able to move up, just being able to feel that inside push and knowing when you can't move up that much, and it's more of an in-place reset opposed to an upward. So a few of those times where I'm feeling kind of someone on my chest or not really being able to finish my throws, I know that's because I might have just moved up a little too far in the pocket, and I'm going to be okay with just sitting back there a little bit. So that's a situational thing. It depends on what team you're playing, the kind of defensive front, their strengths and weaknesses. But Jeff and Sweat have been giving us great looks, and they're going to win sometimes, and I got to understand that and feel that and be able to just sit back in that pocket and be able to deliver the ball well.
I know you're.
So that's one of the biggest things in this preseason. A little bit, whatever little we see of him, I'll be paying attention to. But especially when the season gets kicked off, that's something that I'll be paying a lot of attention to. Just real quick, Derek in the comments asking if his name was in the bag. Yes, Derek, your name was in the bag, so don't worry about that. JT, what did you want to talk about on the Levis topic, the connection overthrow issue? I kind of think I know where you're going with this, but what was your observation from camp on this front?
It's kind of the ongoing discussion we have about, for every Titans deep state media piece that they put out on Will Levis and how good his throws have been, there is an equal 4 or 5 overthrows that I've seen.
They are shaping the narrative. Do not allow the state to shape your narrative. Open your eyes.
In practice. And I believe I was not there for this, but you were for once again, round 2 of Brian Callahan's fireside chat, where he talked about how much film they've been watching on certain receivers. And he noted guys that he's worked with in the past, like Demaryius Thomas, Marvin Jones was an interesting one. Emmanuel Sanders, CeeDee Lamb. I think the weirdest one, I think, for deep balls is the Anquan Bolden one, which I think is a really interesting concept using him as well. But kind of just working on Will Levis's timing, I think, is the biggest thing for him right now with those overthrows. And so kind of talking about his continued development here, it needs to start. I'm glad that they're bringing attention to this, doing this in training camp, and being able to, really get him working on that timing and connection with guys like Calvin Ridley and NWI and Treylon Burks, so that they can kind of be more in sync.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't say this to concern people. I don't think we're bringing this up to concern people, because as we mentioned on Tuesday's show, it's hard to tell what is and isn't consequential this time of year from quarterbacks. You hear people like charting exact completion percentages for quarterbacks and like, well, you had 7 interceptions over the past 7 practices. There's a reason why we don't get all up in arms over interceptions in training camp in early August. There's a reason why we don't get all up in arms about a guy that is struggling a little bit in training camp. You have to take the totality of the month into consideration. You have to keep trends in mind. I think one of the biggest things that actually does matter is focusing in on where chemistry lies and what connections guys seem to have. So like that's something that's actually substantive this time of year. But there are countless examples in the past of guys like CJ Stroud, for example, last year, who in the preseason and in training camp, it was regularly very mundane to questionable to downright bad, and folks were concerned. And then he got to the season and gave him 2 or 3 games, and through 8 quarters, he was tearing the world apart. So it's not everything. It's something, and certain elements of it matter more than the box score you're getting from Jim Wyatt or whoever, not to disparage him, but like, I know that he tracks that kind of thing. Folks that are tracking the stats, that's not the most important thing to gather from this time of year. So, but what is important is making sure folks don't get a little bit over their skis and saying, Will Levis looks awesome. All I'm seeing are highlights. There's a reason all you're seeing is highlights. It's not all that's happening. What else do you want to talk about? T'Vondre Sweat, can we mention him real quick? I've got some footage from him on Wednesday. At practice on Wednesday, I was talking to some folks saying I would kill for them to show us some defensive line, offensive line one-on-ones, because we keep seeing these cornerback, wide receiver one-on-ones, and they're sick. Give us some big boys actually playing football. And then it happened like 10 minutes later, which was super cool. So here's a compilation of all of the Sweat reps from that day. JT, you can go ahead and roll it because there's no audio. It's just going to be a loop of the times that he went one-on-ones and 2-on-2s, working primarily against Lloyd Cushenberry, against Daniel Brunskill, I believe, and against Peter Skoronski, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he looks really good. And if you're the guys that are sitting there charting wins and losses and one-on-ones, T'Vondre Sweat is one of those guys that there's not really many losses. I've not seen him definitively be shut down on a rep. And part of that is the nature of like, this is a superpower. We talked about Mason Kinsey and Kyle Phillips being awesome in short area red zone 7-on-7s. It's because they're designed to do that. Let me tell you, brother, God made T'Vondre Sweat to compete in one-on-ones. That's what this man is built to be. And I don't know. I think it is too early, JT, to victory lap on T'Vondre Sweat. But like I said at the top of the show, the T'Vondre Sweat haters and those that made it kind of personal and got kind of gross about it throughout the summer, it's a tough situation for them right now. They're staying awfully quiet, I've noticed.
Yeah, I think I was also going to note, we had this kind of discussion the first couple days of practice. It seems like he was a little guarded about kind of the overarching narratives. And I know even a certain someone asked a question of him today in which he... about said narratives, and he immediately said it was a bad question and then went on and answered it like a pro. But
which I support, by the way. Athletes, whenever a bad question is answered, start your answer by saying, by the way, that's a bad question, and then answer the question, but it should be called out more often.
However, that kind of thing from T'Vondre Sweat is what we were missing in those first couple of interviews. And I just wanted to note as my portion of my Sweat takeaways is that even in his interviews, that mojo, that swagger that he had when we were talking to him in at the Senior Bowl and things like that. Like these guys, these are the things you want to see from a guy who is really dominant in his craft and feels good about his game. And so that's really all I had to say about T'Vondre Sweat in practice. It seems like he's getting that mojo back, and that's a really fun thing to see, because when he's confident, like you see in these clips, he's never going to lose a rep. You know, he may not win all the way, but him playing tough and with that confidence is a problem for offensive linemen.
Yeah, I completely agree. The last thing I think is of note is the endurance thing. And that's when I'm going to be comfortable actually victory lapping, when we see him out there playing a certain percentage of the snaps. If he's out there ahead of schedule in terms of playing a lot of the game, so a big part of this conversation, right, is the big body. Can he stay out there and be conditioned highly enough to play enough snaps to be worthy of a top 50 or top, I think it was a top 50 pick, top 40 pick, 30 something. Is that right?
Who? Sweat?
T'Vondre Sweat was in the 30s, right?
He was 38.
Yeah. Okay. So a top 40 pick. A big part of that is, can you be out there and play enough football to matter in that way? Can you be a 3-down guy? Can you be conditioned enough to play all 4 quarters? So far through camp, and Brian Callahan mentioned this earlier this week, the conditioning is good. And in terms of a guy that you want to be a 3-down full game player, Callahan said you want to see 5 or 6 snaps in a row from the guy. And Sweat said that's what he feels comfortable doing right now, is playing 5 or 6 snaps in a row and not getting out of breath. That's where he would kind of evaluate his own conditioning. That's very good. That's very promising. And so I have, we spent the spring, it was nothing but JC Latham green flags. And so far through 2-3 weeks of training camp, the summer has been nothing but green flags from T'Vondre Sweat. So good news for folks like you and I and Zach and Stoney and Braden and Sam Phelan and Teron Davenport. That's my mental short list of guys that were through and through T'Vondre Sweat supporters. We may have to throw a little pizza party, like a little office pizza party for ourselves. I don't know.
I will say I was really glad that you guys were able to capture those, because on Tuesday's show, I kind of gave you the image of T'Vondre Sweat being the kid running over the other kid on the plastic car. And then I was able to watch that clip and I was able to use it. Like that was so fun. I was like, perfect timing. So
it is perfect.
Yeah.
And it's also, that clip is not a meme. It's actually a documentary. That's actually just what happens whenever T'Vondre Sweat is playing. Anything else from camp? What are these hot takes? Can you give me some of the hot takes and maybe
the hot take you kind of
alluded
to it at the beginning of the show. But the biggest hot take is that it's been a week, and I think, the hot take is that I think it may be time to question if we can panic about the offensive line and what is going on there right now. I think there are some rumblings that it's fair to question if this is going to work right now. And from the things that I see, the ability of their chemistry to get together, more so on the right side of the line, but with with Lloyd Cushenberry coming in into a new offensive line here, a group that he needs to kind of command. Peter Skoronski in that second year, looking like Peter Skoronski should. I would say that is the best thing about the offensive line.
I think he's the best lineman out there right now, which is how I felt last year at this time of year too, frankly.
Yes. And so with that right side in limbo, Lloyd Cushenberry's newness to this team, and then the rookie kind of hurdles that JC Latham might experience here, I think it's fair to question that, as we talked about last year and how dominant the defense continued to be every single practice, I think we're seeing some shades of that again, and I'm interested to see. I'm not panicking, but I'm not panicking yet. And so with that, I do want to come out here and state my case to probably some people in the chat who might fall to their knees at a local Walmart when I say this or something like that. But I'm here to say that Ojukwu Mania is dead. It's never been over. It's never been.
Say it ain't over. So. Stoney, cover your ear. I hope Stoney was sitting down somewhere. He may be dead in a local Walmart. That is terrible news.
It's NPF's job. Yes. It's NPF's job, and I really do also, to that extent, I think Dylan Radins will be the right guard starting week 1. I think we can talk about the guys that they're going to continue to put in there, but I think we're getting to a point now with these as Stoney says, I just pushed over an entire shelf of Oktoberfest.
A running swan dive into a pyramid of toilet paper rolls.
Yeah. I think that's the starting group that we're going to see come the first game against the Chicago Bears is going to be J.C. Latham, Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, Dylan Radins, and MPF. And so with that in mind, how confident can you be? And as Stoney also says, I think I'm actually ready to panic with you, JT.
Once Ojukwu fell, his will to live fell for this offensive line.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see if this group can really put it together and we can start to get, for them to be named to that starter role and be able to start getting that chemistry together as all five of them more often. I think that's what we really need to see from them for the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I have thoughts on this. The image that's going through my head right now is actually, I think the correct answer is Stoney falling through the live lobster tank that's like in the middle of the walkway, and it's just lobsters and water everywhere. That's what I'm picturing. So that's ideal in my opinion. My question is, first of all, clearly I think the cause for panic here is the reason that you think that there's cause for panic is because the pressure is finally getting to Bill Callahan, but that's a topic for another day. In all seriousness, I do question whether the incentive right now to panic is born more of them being behind schedule or more of folks over aggressive timelines kind of coming back to earth, if that makes sense. We've kind of alluded to this over the past couple of weeks that folks may need to pump the brakes a little bit, not on how good this offensive line can be, so much as how good they will be to begin, and reminding ourselves that even when you put together really, really great pieces with a ton of upside and you got a fantastic coach, it's a matter of really good coaching, not miracle working. And it may take a half season for them to get from bottom in the league where they, were starting, having ended off last year, up to average, which is where we're trying to get them to this season is kind of the benchmark. It's just be an average, a 15th, 16th best offensive line in the league would be very good and promising. That may very well take some time. The biggest thing for me, JT, that I think folks are reckoning with as they start to panic a little bit and maybe not say it out loud, but think it, is that because the vibes in the spring were so positive with J.C. Latham, everything folks have heard about Lloyd Cushenberry, because they've not watched the average fan has not really watched Lloyd Cushenberry play. They just hear he's one of the best centers in the league, young, the best guy in free agency that they brought in at the position. And then Peter Skoronski in year two, all the positivity of he looks like he's the best player out there. He's bigger, stronger. He's not having to come off of an appendectomy. All of the vibes on that left side of the line were positive. And I think we got to a point mentally, collectively, where we were writing that off as, okay, well, the left side is set. Now let's just see if this right side can figure it out. And we're starting to realize, hey, J.C. Latham's still a rookie. He's still going to be playing a position he hasn't played in a couple of years. Peter Skoronski is still a second-year player. And, if he's the best player on the line, they may be asking him to do more than, he might be a little bit stretched out bandwidth-wise. And then Luke Cushenberry is playing in a new system. The center is the quarterback of the line. He's got to be the communicator. He's got to be the smartest guy up there. He's got to have a good rapport with the quarterback. He's still developing that, doing all of these things at the same time. And the right side are big question marks. So there's actually still questions across the whole line. And I think folks have to readjust their thinking to quit this idea of, well, the left side is set in stone. The left side is set in stone in terms of who is starting. Yes. But I think folks hear me say, well, the left side, we know who that is, and think they're good. No, we just know who it is. They may or may not be good to begin the year.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Stoney says in the comments here, how many times is Sweat going to fold Cushenberry before we start asking questions? I don't subscribe to that train of thought so much because once again,
it's a chicken or egg thing, right? We don't know.
It's
next week.
Next Sweat. Week. Yes.
Next week. We will know. This preseason
exactly.
game. But next week is when, because we keep drawing this comparison to last year. Oh, we're not falling for that again. The defensive line looks awesome. It's actually because the offensive line stinks. It is possible that actually this offensive line is fine, and the defensive linemen that we're looking at, Sweat in particular, they're playing really, Sebastian Joseph Day having a quietly, Jalen Harrell getting after these guys are actually just overachieving in our eyes. I'm not saying it's likely. I actually think I lean more with you that it's makes me worry for the offensive line a little bit. But we won't know until they play other people. Is my point.
We learned to be skeptical, and I think it's good that we're skeptical now instead of going into it with blind optimism last season. I think being skeptical is going to be yes.
So
yeah.
Okay. Anything else to empty the notebook on? I really don't have. I think that's it.
We kind of talked about Jalen Harrell. I think that's a guy. I think Derek in the comments asked about Murray still impressing. I think Kenneth Murray continues to be, for my money's worth, the best inside linebacker that they have, and whether or not we keep hearing these things, not necessarily that he's wearing a green dot or anything, but that he's kind of quietly become the leader of this defense, the field general. So maybe kind of wearing a half green dot kind of style thing, which is not what we would have expected from him, or any of us really would have expected from him at the time of signing.
Right.
But they continue to have the utmost confidence in him. So, he may not be making a play every day, but he's impressing by way of what the coaches have to say about him.
All right, 3 players who are going to score a touchdown this weekend. See if you can just get the trifecta. Who is it? Who's scoring?
For the Titans?
3 touchdowns. Who is it? Yeah. If they score 3 touchdowns, who are the 3 players?
I'm going to go. I hate that you said one of the worst sentences I've ever heard in my enther life. Nasty nut season is not a combination of words I ever.
The nasty nut season.
I don't want to. You
don't get it. You just don't get it. See, that's such a Gen Z thing of mine, and you, the most Gen Z person I know, I don't get why you don't think it's funny.
I don't know. I just I don't like it. I was gonna say, Julius Chestnut needs to be in there. I think that's one.
Okay.
I think let's go Mason Kinsey for 2.
Yeah.
And then I'm going with one of Stoney's picks here, Bryce Oliver. Why not? Let's. Yeah.
Bryce Oliver. That was going to be my deep cut.
Malik Willis to Bryce Oliver connection.
Yes,
I think
that's literally the whole take for me. Is that it's those 2. Yes.
I'm glad we're on the same page. Derek says.
I'm going to say. You go ahead.
Derek says JC Sweat and Jaquan Jackson. If you better take that ticket, that 5 cent to win $500 billion ticket up to the window right now. Because that'll be very interesting. But Stoney also says Bryce Oliver, David Martin Robinson, and Hassan Haskins. So
okay, I'm gonna say Bryce Oliver, Jabari Small. I'm gonna say that just Jabari Small punches one in from like the 2-yard line and steals somebody's thunder, and Thomas Odukoya. So I'll go Odukoya, Small, Bryce Oliver. We'll see who hits more on that front. Okay. Congrats to Jesse Owens Jesse Fletcher, who's going to be joining us in the stands. Not Jesse Owens.
Watching a little bit too much. Watching a little too much Olympics today, are we?
That's right. Well, frankly, Jesse Fletcher, I would dump you for Jesse Owens in terms of a seatmate, but he's not around. He doesn't want to come to the game with us. So it's you, Jesse Fletcher. We'll be reaching out to you.
And Jesse might not want to be a seatmate with you, and that's something we'll have to talk to.
And that is still very much
everybody
TBD.
Also asking in the comments here, where is Jesse? As if this is also not a podcast that comes out, and maybe he's just a regular listener.
Yeah, Jesse might be busy living his life, guys. That's
not like all the sickos who are here every single day to watch, but we appreciate you. So
one last completely unrelated note. I've had people ask me this week whether or not I tried to weasel my way out of my promise to try to swim a 1,500 meter race and see if I can complete it. I'm eyeing tomorrow to do that, and if so, I'll let you know how it goes. I don't think I'm going to live stream it because if I successfully complete it, it's going to take at least like 45 minutes, and no one wants to watch a live stream of me just going back and forth for 45 minutes.
That was.
But there will be pictures. My wife will be there, and you can trust her confirmation on what I actually do, because she is she'll be admitting it begrudgingly because she's actively betting against me as well. So she's not going to help me in lying to you all about what I complete.
I was going to say we won't be able to live stream it because I don't think an iPhone battery can film that long for how long it's going to take you.
No, actually, you're not going to be able to live stream it because it's illegal to live stream somebody's death on YouTube. That's something you can't do. So that's the reason why it'll be
probably not on Twitter though. It's Elon's wasteland.
You can live stream whatever you want on. That's a good point. It's a great point. Okay, we're gonna get geared up to join Jesse and watch the Titans on Saturday night. Of course, Saturday night, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Titans, Niners. Check that game out. We'll be live on Sunday at some point, time TBD, reacting to that game with some winners and losers. And then we'll be back at training camp next week with some joint practices with the Seahawks. Super exciting times ahead for the Titans. Until then, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're liking the video on Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. Follow us on social media at Hot Read Pod on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. Until Sunday, for producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. We'll talk to you then.